You are eating, talking, laughing with someone at the same time, and suddenly a piece of food goes down the wrong way. For a few terrifying seconds, you cannot breathe. Today, most people know at least the basic idea of what to do: a firm strike to the back, an upward thrust to the stomach, or someone nearby who has seen it done before. Now picture that exact same moment happening to a person tens of thousands of years ago, with absolutely no name for what was happening inside their body, no known technique passed down through any kind of formal training, and no idea that a few seconds could be the difference between life and death. Researchers studying ancient human behavior and comparing it to still existing traditional societies have pieced together a surprisingly clear picture of what likely happened in that moment. And it is far more instinctive and far more revealing about human nature than most people expect. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what an ancient human's body and the people around them actually did the instant breathing suddenly stopped. If uncovering the raw, instinctive side of how ancient humans handled sudden, life-threatening moments is the kind of mystery that keeps pulling you in, this is exactly the territory this channel browns every single week. So staying nearby means the next one will not slip past you. Let's start with the body itself, because before any other person could even react, the ancient human body was already doing something on its own, entirely automatically. Choking triggers one of the strongest involuntary reflexes the human body has: a violent, forceful coughing response designed specifically to expel whatever is blocking the airway. This reflex is not something ancient humans needed to learn or understand. It is built directly into human anatomy, present in every single person regardless of time period, culture, or level of medical knowledge. In the vast majority of choking incidents throughout human history, this single automatic reflex alone was almost certainly enough to clear the airway before anyone else even had time to react. So for most choking incidents, the honest answer to what ancient humans did is, quite simply, their own body did the work without anyone needing to do anything at all. But that only covers the version of this story where things resolved quickly on their own. The far more dangerous version happens when a blockage is severe enough that coughing alone cannot clear it. And this is where things get considerably more intense. When natural reflexes fail to clear a blocked airway, researchers studying instinctive human behavior point to something built directly into how humans respond to seeing another person in this kind of distress: an immediate, largely unconscious physical urge to intervene, typically by striking the person firmly on the back. This is not a technique that had to be formally invented or taught the way modern first aid courses teach specific procedures today. A firm, repeated strike between the shoulder blades is one of the most basic physical interventions a human being can instinctively reach for when watching someone struggle to breathe. And researchers studying human behavior in emergency situations describe this kind of instinctive physical response as deeply rooted in human psychology, something closer to a built-in survival behavior than a learned skill. Here is a question worth sitting with for a moment. If someone right next to you suddenly could not breathe, and you had zero training of any kind, do you honestly think your body would know what to do on pure instinct alone? Type your honest guess in the comments, because the answer, according to researchers, might surprise you. There is a second layer to this story that adds real depth to the picture, and it involves something researchers describe as a distinctly human trait: rapid, spontaneous cooperation during a crisis. In the handful of seconds it takes for a person to begin choking severely, evidence from studying group behavior in both ancient contexts and modern emergency situations shows that nearby individuals tend to react almost immediately, moving toward the person in distress rather than away from them, without any discussion, planning, or hesitation. This kind of instant, coordinated group response, multiple people converging on someone in danger within seconds, appears consistently across human history and across cultures, suggesting it is not a modern social behavior, but something considerably older. wired into how humans have always responded to witnessing another person's life suddenly at risk. It is worth being honest about the limits of what researchers can actually confirm here, because choking leaves behind essentially no physical trace for archaeologists to study directly, unlike a broken bone or a healed wound. There is no skeletal marker that says definitively this person choked. Much of what researchers understand about how ancient humans likely responded comes from a combination of studying instinctive human behavior that appears consistent across virtually every culture examined, observing similar reflexive responses in still existing traditional societies today, and applying what is understood about basic human anatomy and psychology backward across human history. Scientists studying this topic are careful to describe this as a well-supported, reasonable reconstruction, rather than something that can be proven with the same certainty as physical evidence, like a fossilized bone. It is also worth considering which members of an ancient community likely faced this danger most often. Young children, still developing the coordination needed to chew and swallow safely, and elderly individuals, potentially dealing with weaker swallowing muscles or missing teeth affecting how thoroughly food could be chewed, likely represented the two groups at the highest ongoing risk. Researchers studying vulnerability patterns in ancient and traditional societies note that this would have made vigilant supervision during shared meals, especially around young children, an important and likely instinctive protective behavior long before anyone understood the specific biological reasons why certain age groups faced elevated risk. None of this means every ancient choking incident ended safely, and this next part of the story is considerably harder to think about. Without any formal understanding of airway anatomy, without any concept of exactly where or how to strike effectively, and without any structured technique resembling the more precise, targeted methods developed much later in human history, ancient interventions were almost certainly inconsistent in effectiveness. A backstrike delivered with the right force and timing likely worked. One delivered too gently, too late, or at the wrong moment likely did not. Researchers studying mortality patterns in ancient and early traditional societies acknowledge that choking almost certainly represented a real, if difficult to precisely quantify, cause of death throughout much of human history, particularly in situations where a person was alone, isolated from their group, or too far from help to receive any kind of intervention in time. If a moment this tense and real is holding your attention right now, that reaction is exactly why leaving a like on a video like this helps more people stumble onto the same kind of surprising history. So if it is doing that for you, this is a good moment to tap it. There is also something worth mentioning about why this specific danger existed so persistently throughout ancient life in the first place. Ancient humans frequently ate while talking, laughing, walking, and remaining alert to potential threats in their surroundings, all at the same time, none of which is unique to ancient life. But the stakes were considerably higher given the complete absence of any emergency response beyond whoever happened to be standing nearby in that exact moment. Meat in particular, often eaten in larger, tougher pieces that had to be aggressively torn and chewed rather than neatly cut into small bites the way most people eat today, likely presented a meaningfully higher choking risk compared to the smaller, more processed food most people consume in modern daily life. It is also worth considering how ancient communities may have unintentionally reduced this risk through simple, everyday social behavior rather than any deliberate safety strategy. Evidence from studying group dynamics in ancient and traditional societies suggests that eating was frequently a communal, shared activity rather than something done alone, with multiple people gathered closely together around a fire or shared meal. While this pattern almost certainly developed for social and practical reasons entirely unrelated to safety, it would have had the accidental side effect of ensuring that someone was nearly always close enough to notice and react immediately if another person began choking, rather than that person facing the moment completely alone. There is also evidence suggesting ancient communities may have unintentionally reduced choking risk through how they prepared food for the most vulnerable members of the group. Some researchers studying ancient food processing point to evidence of meat and tough plant material being deliberately pounded, mashed, or pre-chewed by adults before being given to very young children or elderly individuals with limited chewing ability. A practice still observed today in a number of traditional societies. While this behavior almost certainly developed primarily as a practical response to someone being physically unable to chew tough food effectively, it would have carried the added benefit of significantly reducing choking risk for exactly the two groups most vulnerable to it. There is one more detail researchers have pointed to that adds an unexpectedly hopeful note to this story. The same instinctive cooperative response responsible for helping a choking person likely applied broadly across many different types of sudden danger throughout ancient life, not just choking specifically. This suggests early human survival depended on something far more sophisticated than individual physical strength or isolated survival skill. It depended on a consistent, deeply ingrained willingness within the group to react immediately and physically to protect one another the instant something went visibly wrong. A pattern of behavior researchers believe played a significant role in human survival long before any formal concept of medicine, safety, or emergency response ever existed. So here is the real answer to the question this video opened with. When food became lodged in an ancient human's throat, the very first response came from the body itself, an automatic, powerful coughing reflex built directly into human anatomy. When that reflex was not enough, nearby humans responded with an instinctive, largely unconscious urge to physically intervene, typically through firm strikes to the back. Driven not by any formal training, but by something deeply rooted in human psychology and social behavior. It did not always work, and choking almost certainly claimed lives throughout ancient human history, but the underlying instinct to immediately help another person in crisis appears to be something far older than modern medicine. Something woven directly into what it has always meant to survive as a group, rather than as an isolated individual. If this uncovered something you did not expect, there is another everyday moment sitting right behind it that might be even harder to imagine enduring. What actually happened when someone developed a severe toothache in the middle of the night, with hours left before daylight and absolutely no way to make the pain stop? That story is coming next, and it reveals something about ancient human endurance that most people have never once stopped to consider.